This is Cody Wiles, driver of the number 14 Superstock at Delaware Speedway, and you're watching On Track with KMK.
Hello everybody, KMK with you here for ONTrack Weekly. We barely made it in tonight, but we did. And it's Delaware night. Thank you to Cody Wiles, Wild Man, for the introduction of today's show. Glad to have you on the show, Cody, and all the best for the 2024 season. We continue our trek around Ontario in our track features as we head to Delaware Speedway next. And man, what I tell you, what a track, what a facility, what a place to watch a race, whether on stream or in person. What a amazing facility Delaware Speedway is. Been there a couple of times, and it is really hard to compare it to anything else. I mean, the speed that these guys and gals have at this racetrack is phenomenal. And by the way that they are able to maneuver, I'd say, you know, I've seen the NASCAR Canada Series a couple times there, but to me, it's the late models that really stand out at Delaware with the speed. The speed is absolutely phenomenal, and we're definitely excited to talk about Delaware Speedway today, because it is for sure one of the places that you can catch a solid race no matter what week, no matter what class is running. We're going to go through their schedule. We'll go through the 2023 point standings, and then we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at what we've got in terms of a roster so far. Now, this is very early. We are now only into February. Got a lot of months still to go. Lots of registrations still to be had for Delaware Speedway. But, you know, they've released their schedule. It's pretty stacked as we expected. It's some changes, and we'll talk about those as well. But Delaware Speedway, of course, on Rogers TV London, YouTube and or online. And routinely what I find is when you have a streaming service, I mean, there's a constant debate on whether or not it's a good thing. And I'll just share my experience. I knew nothing about Delaware Speedway. And I'll be honest, thanks to Rogers TV London, was able to see Delaware Speedway for the very first time, catch their weekly racing, and that's really what started my love of the weekly short track racing. Delaware's season is like no other. I think it's got a ton of untapped potential in the bone stock division. I think you can see it week in and week out. And what's nice about it is that there are the opportunities to go back and watch these races. Actually, that's what I'm doing right now, going back and watching from 2021 onward. And it's nice to see tracks that have that ability, that you can go back and watch these races. And I know, like I said, it is tough because it's that big debate whether or not it takes and it harms people from coming to the racetrack. I mean, it's a very, very tough conversation to have. But for myself, I thought it actually made it more interesting for me. I wanted to go to the racetrack more because of what I was watching on television. And Chris Soares and Joey Langdon in 21, I wasn't as familiar with the racing scene, so their excitement really on really everything on the broadcast really did make it very, very easy to follow and continue watching week in and week out. And now I honestly look forward to it more than the truck races. I mean, I look forward to knowing that I have Delaware and Ohsweken Speedway on Friday nights. And it is absolutely phenomenal that we get to have access to seeing such great racing on a weekly basis at a racetrack in Delaware. I mean, for myself, it's hard to get down there. And so being able to catch it live is such a treat. But I think that's what people have to remember is it is a treat. The track still needs people to go to it. So luckily their crowds, and they've shown very good shots weekly. The crowds have been phenomenal at Delaware, and they deserve it. I mean, they've put the work in. Every conversation that you hear about how much work has gone into this track and what Luke and his team have done. I mean, Sean Gibbs even coming in and being a part of things last year. I know if I can speak from experience with OSS, they did some stuff last year for us that I thought was so incredibly classy. As a touring series, we were there for our season opener, and it was the most awful weather, unfortunately. And they put us on first. And we got at least halfway of our race done. They held off their weekly classes to put the touring series on first. And I thought that was just such a great move. And it says a lot about what they do. And, you can tell by the amount of racers that they've had in each class. It is very evident that they're doing things the right way. Now, obviously, I think you can take a look at the bone stock division as BT Racing's kind of playground the last couple of years with the amount of cars that BT Racing has put out there. And it is awesome to see that. It really is. I think that the more and more that you watch and you follow the racing out at Delaware, the more hype I think it builds, really. And look at what the talent has come out of this racetrack as well. We'll talk about the rosters for 24, but Chase Pinsnow, for a perfect example, raced in this at this racetrack last year as well as the APC series and gotten a great opportunity. Carson Hocevar racing, and we know Kyle Steckley's run the championship and run out here. And I think there's a lot more names that Joe Lawrence, untapped potential, really. Then they go into the APC series and they succeed there, and now they're getting opportunities down south, which is absolutely awesome to see. Let's take a look at their 2024 schedule, and we'll bring it over here for everybody to see. So it starts off May 10th. Of course, one thing to remember, they're Fridays, majority Fridays. They also have some Saturday day shows. What's very interesting to note, there is no Sunday show this year. The NASCAR Canada Series schedule does not align with the Delaware schedule and when they are going to run their race. So they've actually switched dates. It's going to be in August, but most of the time you see 7:30 starts. Obviously, some of the touring series, they need to make those decisions as to when. But they start off with their 72nd season and their opener with bone stocks, V8 stocks, super stocks, and late models, every division on the card to start. Then week 2, obviously I'm really excited about this one, the Ontario Sportsman Series in with the bone stocks and the V8 stocks for the second week. King of the Hill with super stocks and late models on May 24th, and then the bone stocks, V8 stocks, and super stocks on May 31st. June 7th brings the Superstock 50 and the late models 75. Extended races for both of those classes. And then it's the first autograph night of the season on June 14th. Now, this is obviously anytime that you can have races of the sort where you have extended laps. I was actually just watching. I don't think I've seen any, unfortunately. Yeah, I think they did it was in 21, they did a bone stock 75. So they haven't done one of those, I think, in a while, but they got a bone stock 50 that they're going to do later on in the season. But I absolutely love that they get to go out and have these extended races. We get to see these guys run a little bit longer than what they typically would. King of the Hill obviously is always a lot of fun, and at Delaware especially, some of the entries that they've been able to get, and the list of entries, really, the amount of racers is quite remarkable. How many cars and trucks they get out there. And last year they had a couple of great one-on-one battles in the King of the Hill. Quick Superstock Series makes their return with the Oscar Modifieds and Hot Rods June 28th and June 29th. APC Series on the Saturday. And if you haven't, I'm telling you guys, go check it out. APC Series at Delaware Speedway. The thunder that those cars make when they rocket down that front stretch is like something else. It is, they take that stereotypical racing like thunder. That is what you get from those late models. Bone Stocks, V8 Stocks, Super Stocks on the July 5th weekend. Now, it's a little bit of a different for the OSS this year. They are going to do a second event, but not a third event. They're going to do a second event. It's going to be July 12th. Autograph night for them, Bone Stocks, and the late models. A really stacked card there. 100 lapper for the Ontario Sportsman Series. King of the Hill, Bone Stocks, V8 Stocks, and late models. And then, of course, the Monster Truck Showdown, or Throwdown, and Freestyle Motocross. 2 nights, July 26th, July 27th. Definitely make sure you go check those out. There's some great pictures, great video from last year. I believe I seen Avenger out there, Jim Kohler. And that's Monster Jam-esque event happening at Delaware Speedway. So definitely make sure you go out there and enjoy that. Superstock 50 and late model 75 on August 2nd. Then another autograph night with Bone Stocks, V8 Stocks, and late models. Takes a little bit of time to get there, but the Outlaw Super late models on August 16th. Now, surprisingly, it does appear to only be one event for the Outlaw late models, which is a little surprising. I think they normally do a couple more than that, but either way, the fact that they're going to be out there, they're looking like a pretty stacked field for that series as well in 2024. Super late models with Bone Stocks and the Super Stocks, and then you have on August 17th. This is what's nice about it, is it's back-to-back. You've got the 16th and the 17th. So that's a weekend where you want to get out there, get your camping in, and go and catch out some super late model action with the Bone Stocks and Super Stocks. Same weekend as the NASCAR Canada Series 250 with the V8 Stocks. Now, I've already said this before. Our Ontario Sportsman Series guys, I think we're racing already. But if we're not, get out there and get those OSS cars in the V8 Stock event. Put on a show there if you can. King of the Hill returns once again on August 23rd. V8 Stocks, Super Stocks, and late models. Then we've got the Bone Stocks, Super Stocks, and late models on August 30th. The Great Canadian Weekend returns. However, no NASCAR Canada Series in 2024. Quick Super Stocks Championship, V8 Stocks, and the Bone Stocks. Then it's the APC Series. Great Canadian 300 on day number 2. The Oscar Modifieds and the Oscar Hot Rods. Definitely a can't miss weekend there. Great Canadian Weekend, always great. On September 13th, it's the Bone Stock 50 with Super Stocks and Kids Pedal Bike Races. The V8 Championship, Super Stock Championship, and Late Model Championship on September 20th. And then how about wrapping it all up with the Bone Stock Championship and the annual Pumpkin Smasher. You've got to love that. That's a wicked event. Put some pumpkins out on the racetrack, put the gut salad out there, and they race on that. And it's always a good show. Jeremiah Rabideau coming off a fantastic year in the Bone Stocks, battling for that championship, and we'll see what he is going to be up to in 2024. We'll transition now over to the point standings for Delaware Speedway in 2023. And you know what? Again, being able to follow a points championship at a weekly race, weekly series, weekly track, that is awesome. And being able to catch it back and rewatch kind of how things happened is also great. I want to thank Catalyst Lubricants for partnering with the late model division in 2023. Connor Pritico was your 2023 late model champion over Chase Pinsino, Jesse Kennedy. Ray Morneau finished fourth. Now I'm going to say Ray didn't have the best of seasons last year, and he really had a tough year. I definitely expect that you're going to see a little bit more out of Ray Morneau in 24. I think they can definitely say that the year wasn't what they were hoping for, but he's back and he's running for the championship. Apparently has some other stuff going on that he was announcing on their draws that they did this past weekend. Chase Pinsino, don't expect to see him back at all. He is running in the CRA All-Pro or All-Star Series with Carson Hocevar Racing. Got a great opportunity down south. And we know through interviewing Chase that was something that he really wanted to do. But the guy, obviously, that I wanted to watch is Connor Pritico. And I'm hoping we get to see Connor on the APC Tour. He's somebody that definitely has a big future, already winning a championship at one of the most prestigious racetracks of all time in Delaware Speedway. Jesse Kennedy, of course, how can you count out Jesse? He's does it all and wins in every division that he's been in. He's been doing it for such a long time. Gary Adrianson is also somebody else I think we kind of maybe expected to see a little bit more, and unfortunately just had some bad luck in some of those events. Marshall Schrank, Pat Friel, Matt Robley, Barry Watson, and Brander Vanderwall. Again, this top 10, I'd be very curious to see what comes of it for 2024. Obviously, with Chase Pinsino potentially not being back, there's a lot of room for movement here. And then, of course, we also have to think about, are there going to be people that are going to be racing this year that we haven't heard of their plans so far? Lloyd Rawlings, Ron Beauchamp Jr., the former champion himself from the CASCAR Super Series. Jason Lidster, somebody that you get to watch quite routinely out at Delaware Speedway. Fortunately, hasn't had a ton of good luck over the last couple years. Been fast, but just hasn't had the luck. Mark Jacobs, didn't see him as much as we normally would. Darrell Lake, the big news last season on the broadcast was announced that he was going to be switching to Superstock in 2024. Jake Sheridan, Kyle Steckney, these are normally the names that you'll see part-time. Typically come out, run a couple races, normally APC competitors or just part-time racers. Kyle Steckney was out there a couple times. Jake Hooker, Brady Smith. Now, Jake Hooker might be somebody we watch at Delaware Speedway this year. Obviously, the news with Southern Ontario Motor Speedway being shut down. Don't know where Jake is going to be racing this year. Maybe he comes out and runs a little bit more of the late models. That would be definitely something to watch. Brady Smith, Sean McGlynn. Sean's already said that he's going to do some APC events. I wouldn't be shocked to see him out and run Delaware a couple times. Trevor Thompson, I believe had some crash damage with Steve Arond, also had some. Josh Stoddy, Eric De La Riva, Pete Vanderwist, Shea Gemmel, and Cole Powell. Cole actually did not end up actually making, I believe, the start. He was involved in a wreck in the heat race, if I'm not mistaken, and it didn't result in any points, unfortunately, for Cole. Not sure if he'll be back, but 27 drivers in 2023. I'll be very curious to see what we get in 2024. Obviously, I'm supporting Delaware all the way. I love this track, and I love the weekly late model racing. Hopefully, a little bit cleaner of season. They had, overall, there was just, unfortunately, when you wreck at Delaware, you wreck big. And when they do wreck, there's a lot of damage to some of those cars. So, but the late models, once again, Connor Pritico put on a show, and I'm very curious to see how this field lines up. I mean, obviously, if I'm going to pick somebody, I'm going to say Ray Morneau. I think he's the guy that's going to have the most to prove after last year. But They talk about championship slump, and that's very possible as to what happened with him, and is very possible that Ray Morneau, Gary Adrianson, again, somebody else, I think you could very well put him in the conversation. Matt Robley is actually somebody that I'm really glad to see him, his plans for 24. I was watching back in 21, and he definitely was much, much better than what he had last year, and I guess just a miserable season for him as well. So there's a lot of names that really had a tough season last year, and as Scott Pro says, at Delaware, like most tracks, you don't just hit the wall, it hits back. And at Delaware, last year, there was some big hits. We'll talk about the Super Stocks and the V8 stocks. Yeah, we'll definitely get there. All right. How about Inventory Express Lubricants? Thank you for partnering with the Superstock division. Probably the best overall championship last year. It was back and forth in this and in the Quick Week series. And Inventory Express, thank you for partnering with the Superstocks. Carson Nagy comes away with the championship and did it in a amazing fashion. Carson battling all season long with, and don't let his points championship position confuse you. Sean Chenoweth there at the bottom of the screen, and Lane Zardo were a part of this championship all season long. Sean did end up helping out and racing elsewhere, but not running the full season, hence why he dropped in the points. But the battles between those three drivers, add in Jay Dewar, add in Trevor Culver, David McCullough, it is absolutely phenomenal. I have not been so intrigued by a battle that was so side by side almost every week, clean. There was one issue that they had, I believe, that caused a big wreck, but that was it. And all season long, be that close, racing clean. That's what you want. And that's what you want to show people. Carson Nagy and Lane Zardo know how to race side by side. They know how to race clean. Add in Sean Chenoweth into that battle. And it was a battle for the ages. Jay Dewar didn't have as much oomph as he had the year before, but was still out there battling. And again, it's funny because I go back and look at 2010 in the OSS series. Jay Dewar's the champion. He's still out here battling for wins week in and week out in a beautiful liveried car, that 43 Richard Petty-esque super stock. Again, not sure what Jay is doing in 24. Hopefully he's back. Trevor Culver is another one that I think you can always count on in the Superstock division. David McCullough as well. Brody Rickwood had a breakout season. Unfortunately, was involved in a massive crash with Cody Wilds later in the season, and it really did impact, unfortunately, the ending of his season. But he got out there. He had a heat win. Definitely looking impressive. Nick Ramsey got points, but wasn't able to compete in every race. Unfortunately, Nick was dealing with an illness, and luckily, it sounds like he's turned a corner and he's doing better. And I spoke with Nick earlier this year, and it sounds like their plans are to be back. Ryan Bright, Ryan Dyson. If there was a guy that had bad luck last year, Ryan Dyson was the guy. Now, if you guys know anything about Ryan Dyson, he is not going to settle for having a season like they had last year. So they went out. They've got a new car, working with WMI, putting some finishing touches on that. Of course, you can check them out at JRD Motorsports on YouTube and on social media. Pete Vanderwish Jr., again, I wasn't expecting that he was going to have as difficult of a season as he did, but again, if he's back in the Superstock this year, I would expect that we'll see a big improvement. Lonnie Thompson, Sean Chenoweth, Brad Collison, Ethan Orr in his first season as Superstock competitor. Cody Wilds. Now, this will be a really big story for Cody. His season ended last year in injury after a massive crash with Brody Rickwood. And I'm not going to be able to remember the exact diagnosis, but he had fractures galore, unfortunately. And that young kid, was at the track in his cast and his walking boots for the NASCAR Canada Series race. And it's not going to let him, not going to stop him. So Cody Wilds going to be back. He's got a brand new super stock for this year, and or a new one to them. Kyle Mesenberg in the 810. Again, I think he was hoping he would do a little bit better. And then another guy who had a really tough end to his season, Connor Van Steensel, massive crash in turn 3 and 4 last year. Hudson Nagy. Now, I'm going to be really pumped if Hudson Nagy is back full time. We could see a true battle between the Nagy brothers all season long, because Hudson Nagy came in, old Chase Pincinot superstock, and was just competitive from the drop of the green flag. Let's see, what do we got here? Jay Wild says 3 breaks in the left, 3 breaks in the foot, and a sprained other ankle. Like, come on, crazy. So, unfortunately, that's some of the situations that we had last year with some big wrecks here. But Pincinot finished 19th in the point standings. Ryden Lapsovich, Kevin Trevlin, and Rick Verburn. Dan Monahan, I don't believe ever actually made it out on track in the 03. Unbelievable. 3 breaks in the leg, 3 breaks in the foot, and another sprained ankle for Cody Wild. But he's going to be back out there, and he's going to be chasing a championship. Rick Verburn officially moving on from racing as a competitor. He has officially retired, so we won't see the 88 out there, unfortunately. But the Superstocks, we've already got some names confirmed for next year, so we'll get into those in just a little bit. And as we move on to the Doxator Property Maintenance V8 Stock Series, a series that in 21, if you were to watch it, and you go back and watch it on YouTube, it's probably shocking that you see it still existing. But what Delaware did with this division by adding a breakout time, trying to make it a little bit more interesting. And listen, there are going to be people that agree with breakout times and people that don't. I for one, I don't particularly like it. What I will say, though, is that it really works for the V8 Stock Series, and it gave this series life. This division has definitely been able to grow in its numbers. There was only 5 or 6 competitors back in 21. Now, all of a sudden, you've got sometimes 10 to 15 competitors week in and week out. That's what's fantastic about it. You get guys that run the hot rods. You got OSS guys that come out there. We've seen late models in this division. So it welcomes different racers to come on in. Paul Fothergill, coming over from running the Superstocks the year before, he comes in and wins the championship. Really not surprising, because Paul Fothergill has dominated the V8 stocks. However, dominating in this series isn't easy now that you've got a breakout time that you have to abide by. Jeff Ferguson was in the show all season long. The Simon Motorsports, I should say number 45, not number 4. And Dave Evison. Why I really like the V8 stocks is a guy like Dave Evison, who was running at the back of the field in the V8 stocks, the super stocks, comes back a couple years later, and now he's winning features in this division. And for guys that maybe don't have either the money or the experience, or just want to get out and have some fun, that is a way to do it, is to go out there, have the opportunity to do it, and go in and out. Cody Coburn, driver in the V8 Stock Series, says hello. Hannah Lamont says hello. We'll get to Hannah in the Bone Stock division in a little bit. But Dave Evison going out there and being able to do this is exactly what you want, especially when you've got guys and gals that maybe cannot afford to be up there and competitive in the Superstock division week in and week out, or just want an alternative. We had guys in the OSS series use this, APC drivers use this as a test series, a way to get out there, get some laps in a race setting. Great idea. Absolutely love it. I'm hoping, again, that we continue to build the V8 Stock Series. It looks like it's going to continue to grow. Jordan Morris, he's the guy that I think is the champion in waiting. And the reason why I say that is Jordan Morris had so much bad luck last year in terms of mechanical issues, but was always fast and just never could get to that week to week winning. But I think Jordan Morris is definitely the guy that you have to watch in this division. Chad Clutterbuck, you see him every week, always competitive. Caden Patrick out there running an OSS car in this division. See if he'll improve. Last year, rookie season for him. Mark McDonald, somebody else who was very impressive when he made them starts last year. Doug Stewart, probably the biggest heartbreak for me last year was seeing Doug Stewart wreck his car. He was another one of those guys that we talked about we had some pretty big wrecks last year at Delaware. Unfortunately, Doug Stewart was one of them. By all accounts, I would expect to see Doug Stewart back in this division next year. And I think seeing a guy going out there and still being able to compete up the front, and he was until that big wreck, it's nice to see guys like that being able to come out and run. Cody Coburn, former Superstock, moved this into this V8 stock, finished 10th in the standings. He's going to look to do a little bit better in 2024. Book Motorsports 64 hot rod team right out there. Lance Groshock, Kevin Wheaton. I believe Kevin Wheaton actually came out and he had a heat win. And then unfortunately they came out and when it came to the feature didn't have a good luck at all. Jeremy Taggart from the Oscar Hot Rods, Jerry Broom, Oscar Hot Rods, Darren Thurkettle, David Rockwood, somebody else you can always count on to run up front. Kyle Mesenberg, one of the guys, again, he's a former champion in this series, and you can definitely see that he could be out there and winning. Steve Book, Kevin Jackman, and Chris Shera, Randy Thompson, those are from the Doxator Property Maintenance V8 Stock Series. Thank you to Doxator Property Maintenance for partnering with the V8 stocks in 2023. I'm very excited to see how this class does in 24. Obviously, Paul Fothergill, he's one of my favorites to watch. So, a legend in motorsports, coming away with another championship. But there's going to be some names out there that are going to compete for him. They're going to give him his run for his money. And Hannah Lamont says it's sad what happened to Doug. It absolutely is. But biggest thing is that he's okay. Now, the biggest field that we saw last year was 74 drivers long in the Wampum Fuels Bone Stock Series out at Delaware Speedway. And Jeremiah Rabideau in that number 5 Bulldog Motors finally got the championship over Jay Cox. And that was a great battle all season long. Jay Cox in the 00, Matt Langford in the 03. Somebody who I think you're going to have to pay attention to in 2024, Donovan Clark in that 52. You know, when there's a guy, when I've talked to probably one of the best in Chris Lawrence, and he names Donovan Clark as somebody that you have to watch, that says something. And Donovan Clark out there in the 52. I'm also going to say that Colin Wilms and Ian Levesque in the 10 and the 17. Those are also two guys I think are going to be very, very good. Also, Justin Culver, 8th in the point standings in his return to full-time competition. Jordan Wilms in the 92. Not sure if Jordan's going to be back at Delaware. I believe he's going to try and win the championship out at Flamborough Speedway. Phil Givens out in the 50. Started out strong. Unfortunately, just a really tough year for BT Racing as a whole at Delaware. They sure were able to get some victories, but it wasn't what we've seen in the past. Cody Coburn says, as far as I know, we lost a few people from last season, but we gained a couple as well, which is good news. Absolutely great to hear people coming into the division. Obviously, you're going to have change year in and year out. Nathan Rea in the 26, just always solid. Jason Craig, I believe, ended up on his roof last year. BT Racing had multiple cars. That's why you see the BT Racing. It should be a number there. But Michael Verburn, somebody else I think you're going to have to watch this year. Joe Kicks, Cassie Howard, Dan Story, Adam Generou, Jack Dixon, Charlie Verhoeven, somebody else who looked very fast last year. Mike Howard's number 3, Tyler Wheel, Rob Wollaston, Mitchell Rawlings, Taylor Everest, and Ian Levesque, your top 25. This was great, is that we're already at 25, and a lot of these names already made starts. Craig Cole, I forgot to mention, in the 55. Not as good of a season as he's typically used to having, but definitely look out for him. Sterling Roberts, and then I think the man who's probably had, I don't know if it's DQs or if it's just bad luck or what's been going on with Jason Lovey, but Jason only finishing 27th in the point standings. Jason Cascanet, Joe Lawrence, Jennifer Hatch, and then somebody else who I expect we'll see running quite well in 24. That's Jesse Howard. Cassie Howard's younger sister. She looked very fast towards the end of the season. It took a while for her to get going, but definitely think that there's something there. Jesse Hertzel as well, always very good. Trent Vanderwist, Hank Clausen, Len Starrett, Tori Robinson, Conrad Julian, David Rockwood, William Clausen, Kara Martin, and Sarah Wheel. Randy Martin, Sarah Penny, Derek Musker, Brady Cox, Hannah Lamont, Jamie Shields. These are a lot of names that we saw in only a couple of events last year. Carl Bartlett, Stan Cook, Destiny Duncan, Ken Fraser, Jimmy Hooper, Gary Trisha, Ryan Houston, Mike Beneteau out of Grand Bend Speedway, Greg Dotson, Jeffrey Schauler, Chris Fairweather. Typically see a little bit more of Chris Fairweather, but he didn't make that many starts last year. Alex Stewart, Shane Gibson, Bill Breckelmans, Kathleen Green, Will Quarry, Austin, Mike Etzel, Keith Parsons, Haley King, Daphne Sullivan, and Dawn York. 74 different names listed there in the points for 2023. Absolutely insane. 74 different names. And of course, if we listed all the BT Racing names from last year, we would have a countless list. But Jeremiah Rabideau finally gets that championship. Curious to see what he does. The Bone Stock division, again, battle between he and Jay Cox last year was fantastic. I kind of feel like they were the class of the field. They're really, as much as Matt Langford, Donovan Clark, Phil Givens, Jordan Wilms, it didn't seem like a lot more were really winning on a week-to-week basis. It really felt like it was a Rabideau, Jay Cox season. But obviously, you can never count out, again, as long as these names are back. I saw Colin Wilms get some heat wins. Cassie Howard made her way into the show several times. 15th in points out of 74. Not bad at all for Cassie. I think a lot of the names that you see towards the back of the field, but their goal this year is to be making as many of the A features as possible. Now, I'm not sure what they're going to be doing in terms of the races themselves. If they're going to continue with the A and the B, the LCQ essentially, or if they're just going to split the field and it's going to be an A main and a B main. Honestly, I don't care. I love the Bone Stock Racing at Delaware Speedway. They do. I was there for the first time. I have never seen Bone Stocks racing at Delaware Speedway. I saw it last year when my buddy Graydon Bunn was racing. Holy crap, do they fly through Delaware Speedway. It is the coolest thing. I got to watch from the inside of Turn 3. Obviously, I was doing work down there, but I absolutely loved it. I was so impressed by what are, entry-level novice racers a lot of the times in this division really going at it. And the racetrack is, I guess from up top and maybe on TV, it doesn't look as fast as it is in real life. And when they sailed down into turn 1 and 2 the first time, I believe it was Ian Levesque, because I was watching the B main. And Ian Levesque was on the front row. I believe Jesse Howard was up there with him. When they flew through turn 3 and 4, which is where I was, I couldn't believe the speed that they were carrying through there and keeping the cars between them. Only a couple of incidents in that one. I believe there was one spin by Jennifer Hatch and then a wreck off of 4 after a slow car got in the way and just led to a checkup and Haley King got wrecked. But for the most part, absolutely bombing through that racetrack. And that's, again, you add in the speed and the work that you have to do. I will say that if you are a bone stock racer, okay, I'm talking Sunset Speedway, Peterborough, what would be really cool, and I don't know if they're ever going to do this, but I love to see like a bone stock invitational where we legitimately get racers from everywhere. And it's not saying that we don't get that, but we do. We got Kara Martin, we got Randy Martin last year. They were out of Grand Bend. You got Hannah Lamont raced at Full Throttle. You got Alex Stewart raced all over. Brady Cox raced normally at Flamborough Speedway. But I'd love to see it when we get guys from Sauble, Full Throttle, like the regulars that all come out in one event. Hell, you could have 100 bone stocks. Legitimately, if you were able to put on an event, you could get 100 bone stocks at Delaware Speedway. Do 4 races of 25. Because I'm not really complaining because they do an amazing job with the bone stock division there. And they don't have issues for car counts. But what you can do at Delaware, you can't do at Sunset. You can't do at Grand Bend. You can't put 100 friggin' cars in the infield. You can't have that many races. But it is legitimately a blast to watch. And as far as every single person that I've heard that's raced at Delaware says, it's an absolute blast in those bone stocks. And the unsung heroes really of Delaware Speedway is this division. I think this division, BT Racing really helped stack it up. But now people are coming in on their own fruition. I like seeing that BT has had names, legitimately successful names like Lane Zardo, Joe Lawrence, obviously Chris Lawrence out there, Paul Fothergill, Jaden Chapman. They've had names come in and race those bone stocks that are champions, and they come in and they do it. Obviously, I'd love to see a bit more on a weekly basis. Legitimately, I know we're saying like we get 50 each week, but if you can all of a sudden do an A and a B main and no one has to go home, absolutely. Have a championship that's like, maybe you don't get as many points if you're in the B main rather than the A main, but I can't talk about what Rogers TV London did for me when it comes to this division. I knew no one in the bone stock division. Absolutely no one. For years. And, you know, it is coverage like this that really does help. I'm sorry, Mike, I don't know what the lap times are for the bone stocks, but I'm sure somebody in the chat can help me. Hannah Lamont's been racing out there, so she can probably say what they are. If anybody that's tuning in on Facebook can let me know as well, because we do have a question as to what the lap times are. Hannah Lamont says she thinks that she heard Rabideau might not be running this year, but she could be wrong. It's possible. You never know with championship whether or not they're going to decide to come back or not. And, you know, I wouldn't blame a driver after they win a championship for not coming back or maybe trying to do something else. You know, I know what's really great about having a broadcast week in and week out is that you get to learn these names, you get to see them. And when you want to go to the racetrack, and when I got to go see them, it was like, oh my God, I know who these drivers are already. Nicole Givens says it's around 23 seconds, Mike. 23 seconds. So a little bit different from Sauble Speedway, Pops, but definitely a lot of fun. And routinely, I mean, week in and week out, what we saw in the bone stock division was you would have the guys that would always typically make the A main, but there would be a solid contingent of drivers who were back and forth between the A and the B, and they wouldn't be every single week. Not to mention, you had disqualifications last year, so people were cut from the main event because of whatever situation they had going on. Now, obviously, we got to get into 2024 talk. And 2024 talk is always something that, you know, it can be iffy because a lot of people will have conversations and say that they're going to do this or they're going to do that. They're going to be back. They're not going to be back. I'm hoping for more. I love this racetrack. I love everything about it. I love that these divisions continuously put on fantastic racing. They have good quality broadcast. I mean, people can say what they want about Rogers, but I will say that I absolutely love the broadcast. I love the coverage. I routinely watch back races because of their coverage, and you need to thank Rogers TV because honestly, I think the reach that they've been getting because they put these out there, it helps us in the media, for example, that if we can't make it to the racetrack, we can go back, we can report on this. I would not know a lot of these names without Rogers TV London. Obviously, you want to go to the racetrack, you want to be there to support each and every week. It's not always the easiest thing for me to get down there on a Friday night after working downtown. I mean, it's just not. And to be able to get home and know that, hey, I'm going to be able to watch Delaware racing tonight. And no offense to Washougal Speedway, but Delaware always comes first for me. And it's because of that broadcast that I'm able to know, and people at home were able to know the names of these racers. And so let's take a look at who we've got for the 4 divisions so far. Now, there's a lot that probably are still to be determined here. This is what I've asked people to confirm. There's also been announcements / post on DelawareSpeedway.com. Make sure you check in on their website. What Delaware is very, very good for is updating the fans. Which I don't particularly understand why a lot of tracks don't do this, but they post their registrations. They announce when people are registered. Thank you. That's what, as a race fan, I want. I want to see who's coming back because that gets me excited. Off-season conversation pieces are so important. They are so important. It helps us that are trying to promote the racing. We can have a show like this, and I can talk about who's going to be there because the track has put it out there. So let's take a quick look as to who we've got so far. Now, obviously, plenty of announcements are still to come. Motorama, typically you'll see a lot more announcements then. People will make their own announcements. I want them to do their own announcements, but this is who has posted or has at least confirmed that this is where they're heading. All right, so we're going to start over here with our bone stock division. Again, some of this is coming from Delaware Speedway itself. The bone stock division, 007, Jack Van Herk, Ian Levesque, somebody I'm watching this year. I think he's going to be very good. Great looking Reed's Automotive cars. Love the way that those cars looked. Rob Wollaston in the Old Spice, number 11. Ricky Bobby or Joe Kicks in the number 12. Always runs the Wonder car. Number change for Taylor Everest, run 95 last year. And he's going to switch to 13. And I'm just saying he as a guess. I don't know if it's a he or a she, so my apologies, Taylor. Just know that we were talking about you. Dakota Luoma, rookie in the number 16. Colin Williams, somebody else I think you're going to watch. Big Booty Judy and Jennifer Hatch is back. Jennifer, going to be somebody else to watch this year. Miss Penny in the number 22P. Also, I've heard some big stuff happening with the BT Racing cars. Maybe some big stuff for Miss Penny this year. Jesse Howard, I think somebody else you're going to have to watch. Adam Generou, and hopefully Generou has a better season. He had a tough year last year. Mike Howard, that's normally a rental program in that number 3. Leon Boschel in the 333. Jason Craig in the 40, and somebody else that you're gonna be watching. Donovan Clark and the Martins, Randy and Kara Martin, a father and son team. Father and son, father and daughter team. Randy Martin in the 52R, champion last year at Grand Bend Speedway. Kara Martin, winner of the 2024 sponsorship, one of the winners of the 2024 sponsorship for Ladies of the Oval. Kara Martin running in the 53. Trent Vanderwist in the 54X. Cassie Howard back in the 59. William Clausen, Mitchell Rawlings. Justin Culver in the 78. Now, he's somebody else I think you've got to watch. Justin, very solid last year. Very, very good in that 78 car. Charlie Verhoeven. Bailey Batty moves to the 90. She's going to do a couple races out at Delaware. Ryan Houston in the 92H. Let me just make sure I move this up for you guys. So you got Justin Culver, Charlie Verhoeven, Bailey Batty, Ryan Houston, Brady Oudman, Jesse Hertzel, and Noah Grevin. Now, what's interesting is that some of these names, again, Dakota Luoma, Jack Van Herk, Liam Bushell, Bailey Batty, Brady Oudman, Noah Grevin, all new names for 2024. That's a great start. Nicole Given says, I love that they put the registered drivers on the website. It's easy for tracks to say they have 20 plus drivers, but they are giving proof. Absolutely. I mean, for myself, Nicole, I just, it gets me hyped when I get to see which names are coming back. So obviously I hope to get to see more of them. Let's head over and we'll look at the Super Stock and the V8 Stock divisions. Justin Collison. Now this is big news. Justin Collison is back in 2024. Brad Collison drove the 13 last year. Cody Wilds, after his scary wreck, he is back. Ryan Dyson, and probably one of the best stories. There's two great stories here on this page, but one of the best stories here, Austin Penny is coming back racing, and I am so excited to see this. If you don't know, Austin was off with an illness and is making his return to the racetrack, running the 37. Going to make the trek. Was going to run, I believe they were going to say Flamborough, but he's going to be here in the Superstock division, very competitive Superstock division at Delaware Speedway. Darrell Lake making the jump back to Superstocks, and Brody Rickwood, somebody else I think you're going to have to watch this year. Now, there's a lot of names that we'll get to in just a second that we don't know of just yet, as to what their plans are, but so far, I mean, to see Austin Penny coming back, that's amazing. I absolutely love that. In the V8 stocks, there's already a good start of names. Ricky Johnson, new name for 2024. Dave Evison returned. And then, man, this story just keeps on giving. It's Steve McCaw going to be running the V8 stocks in 24. And if you don't know, Steve has been very open about it last year. He essentially died at the racetrack last year and was brought back to life. And he is back. And I just, this is one of those stories that you're just, it doesn't give you words. I mean, honestly, I was struggling after the race last year where he was, needed medical attention. And I would say if there was one thing I was hoping that they would have turned away from and not kept talking about on television, it was what was happening with Steve. But the fact of the matter is he's back. He's going to race next year. He's also going to have a teammate in the V8 stocks in 24. Kara Martin is going to do double duty. She is going to run the Bone stocks and the V8 stocks. I absolutely love to see this for a lady of the oval. Shane Dixon in the 57, Caden Patrick, and Cody Coburn. I believe Shane Dixon got that's a former David Rockwood car. Pro Lates. Let's take a look at those Pro Lates of who we've got so far. Ray Morneau. And then big news, Jaden Chapman is returning in the number 13. Redline Motorsports late model Paul Major, a rookie for 2024. Based off of what I see, it looks like a competitor in the WMI team for was a part of Andrew Ranger's NASCAR Canada crew last year. I can't say I'm as familiar with Paul, but good to see another new name, number 14. Pat Friel back. Matt Robley back out there too. Gary Adrianson and Lloyd Rawlings. It is always exciting to have names announced this early in the season. Again, we're only in February. We still have March, April, and then we get started in May. It is coming quick, everybody. It is coming so quickly, and that's why we want to be here. We want to talk about this racing all across Ontario, but Delaware Speedway is, again, your home for asphalt racing on Friday nights, Rangers TV London. I really hope that they're back on the schedule, that Delaware has them back out Rogers, again, is the gift that keeps on giving. Again, rewatching races from 3 years ago is not something I expected, but we're really excited. It is awesome to see these names returning, new names coming in and being a part of these divisions. And this is just it. We're just starting so far. This is just what we have in February. There are still names that's going to come. And if you know anything about Delaware Speedway, what they do is typically they'll do like a dump. Basically, they'll gain a whole bunch of names from registration, and then they'll post and say all these drivers have just registered. And so I'm going to keep this list going all season or all off season until we get there. Hopefully we'll be able to add Carson Nagy, Hudson Nagy, Lane Zarda. Like, so far, this is just what we've got, and it's already stacked in the Superstock division. V8 stock will be interesting to see kind of where we go from there. Prolates is already pretty stacked. So if I go through here, and I've got my side list here, which has all the names. Now, this is names of drivers that haven't confirmed, and they were in the points last year. Okay? So Jay Cox, Trevor Thompson, Matt Langford, Trevor Culver, Sean McGlynn, Jesse Kennedy, Jason Lidster, Ryden Lapsovich, Josh Stoddy, Connor Pritico, Doug Stewart, Kyle Steckley, Marshall Schrank, Hudson Nagy, Lane Zardo, Steve Arond, Jake Hooker, Lonnie Thompson, Jay Dewar, Barry Watson, Jeremiah Rabideau, Brady Smith, Ethan Orr, Will Quarry, Ron Beauchamp Jr., Pete Vandewas, Brandon Vanderwall, Connor Van Steensel, Cole Powell, Sean Chenoweth, Carson Nagy, Mark Jacobs. That's just the start of my list of drivers that haven't confirmed for 2024. Like, stacked beyond belief. Now, definitely come on out there, support Delaware Speedway, support your racers, and if you have never been, come and do a race. If you're a bone stock racer, come out and race. Come and be a part of things. I'm telling you, I just mentioned some of the list. Jake Sheridan, Sterling Roberts, Jeff Ferguson, Jason Lovey, Eric De La Riva, Steve Book, Randy Thompson, Kyle Mesenberg, Hank Clausen, Jordan Morris, Shay Gemmel, Chad Clutterbuck, Kevin Jackman, Lance Groshak, Mark McDonald, Jason Kaskanet, Michael Verburn, Paul Fothergill, David Rockwood, Phil Givens, David McCullough, Dan Story, Darren Thurkettle, Nick Ramsey, Chris Shera, Jack Dixon, Craig Cole, Ryan Bright, Tyler Wheel, Pete Vandewas Jr., Kevin Wheaton, Jeremy Taggart. We're still not done with the names from last year. And we've already got all these names confirmed. So obviously you will have some names every year that aren't a part of things, that aren't a part of the season. Obviously, we want to have as many racers as possible out there, as many cars as we can. But the way to think of it is you can't have 400 BT racing cars every week. You've got to have some other drivers to come out there and support. And it's a Friday night. So I've had the idea floated out before, and I'm very curious if they'd ever consider it. But I know Doug Butler was putting out there, why not have like a mini stock invitational at Delaware Speedway? I love that idea. Now, I'm still new to the racing scene in terms of Ontario racing. I don't know when they did mini stocks at Delaware. I'd be very interested to see how many people would be willing to go down to Delaware and do a mini stock invitational at the half mile. I mean, it would. Everybody knows I'm a sucker for mini stocks, and if you can get guys from the dirt, you can get guys from all over Ontario to come and do a huge mini stock invitational. You could have like I said, just basically for the bone stock one as well. If you do something that's like not on a regular race weekend after maybe everybody else has run, perhaps there's an option there. But if you love racing, go to Delaware Speedway. I've talked about Sunset. I've talked about Peterborough. We've talked about other racetracks. Full Throttle. facility-wise, speed-wise, this is fun. I absolutely love every race I've ever seen at Delaware Speedway. And they definitely do it. Jamie Grover says they used to have invitationals, was popular with the mini mods. I'd love to see it. Love to see it, Jamie. But we obviously only have so much time here on the show. It is past our time for today. I want to thank you for tuning in to ONTrack Weekly. Next week, hopefully we'll be talking about Flamborough Speedway. And then we'll wrap. We'll go to Sauble Speedway and we'll see what we can get with Grand Bend. Grand Bend, I know, doesn't have as much information out there just yet. But, man, thank you guys for tuning in once again here for our Delaware week. We could obviously I could do 2 more hours on this show, really. I love this racetrack. I love everything about the divisions. I'm hoping we get to see another Carson Nagy, Lane Zardo, Sean Chenoweth battle in 24. But let's add Hudson Nagy into that conversation. Oh, and let's add Ryan Dyson into that conversation and Darrell Lake. I think the Super Stock division at Delaware Speedway is going to be very, very fun. I think it's time that we continue loving our racing here in Ontario. So if you can, give us a thumbs up on YouTube, share the video, give us a like on Facebook, comment, share, whatever you can. Mini Stocks would be at their fastest track. They would be faster than the Cup cars on the weekend. Love it, Joe. Love it. Appreciate you guys every week. ONTrack Weekly, of course, Flamborough Speedway. Can't wait to talk about it. We'll have Mike Thompson as our driver intro next week. But thank you for tuning in here on G-Force TV. Have yourselves a great week, and we'll talk to you all next week on ONTrack Weekly.